All right, welcome to the deep dive. This time, you've given us quite the challenge.
Yeah.
A whole stack of articles and analyses about, of course, Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Right.
And clearly you want to understand, you want to get to the bottom of why this film is so notoriously confusing.
It really is.
To so many people.
Yeah, it's fascinating how Nolan, takes a familiar idea, something like time travel, and just completely reinvents it.
Uh-huh.
In Tenet, we're dealing with this concept called inversion.
Okay.
Which essentially means that characters can reverse their actions, move backwards through time,
I'm intrigued already.
while everyone else is moving forward.
So it's not like Back to the Future where you hop in a DeLorean and go back to another era?
Not at all. It's, think of it this way. Time doesn't just flow in one direction.
Okay.
Characters can essentially rewind themselves, almost like hitting a rewind button on their own personal timeline.
So you're watching someone walk down the street, but then all of a sudden they just start moving in reverse.
Exactly.
Like they're being rewound.
And that's exactly what it looks like in the film.
No wonder people walk out of that theater feeling like they need to go back to physics class or something.
You really do.
It's like he's playing with our understanding of cause and effect.
Absolutely.
Like our fundamental understanding of it.
And it gets even more complicated when you factor in something called the temporal pincer movement.
Okay.
Which is, this is where Nolan really pushes the boundaries.
Okay. Temporal pincer movement.
Of what's possible.
Break that down for me. What does that even mean?
So imagine you have two teams that are planning a mission.
Right.
One team executes the plan, moving forward in time.
Okay, standard.
Like usual, right.
Yeah.
But the other team moves backwards through time, essentially rewinding their actions.
Whoa.
To coordinate with the first team.
So they're like attacking this problem from both ends of the timeline.
Exactly.
It's a wild concept.
It is a wild concept.
Yeah.
It's a strategy that allows them to have knowledge of the future.
Right, because they've already lived it.
Right. But it also creates all sorts of paradoxes and complications.
And it really makes you wonder if anyone truly has free will in a world where the future can influence the past.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big philosophical questions that Tenet is grappling with.
Uh-huh.
And the thing is, Nolan doesn't handhold the audience through these complex concepts.
Right.
He kind of just drops you right into the deep end with minimal explanation.
Yeah, I remember there's a line in the film where a character says, "Don't try to understand it, feel it."
Right.
It's like he's daring us to let go of our need for logic and just experience the ride.
Exactly. He's not interested in spoon-feeding the audience every detail.
Yeah.
He trusts us to piece things together to engage with the film on an intellectual and an emotional level.
But let's be real, the source material also points out that Tenet isn't exactly known for its crystal clear dialogue. Some folks found it a little too dense.
Yeah.
And a little jargon heavy, especially when you add on top of that the sound mixing issues.
The dialogue is definitely a part of the challenge.
Right.
It's packed with all this scientific terminology and these cryptic references.
Right.
That can be tough to decipher on a first viewing.
Uh-huh.
And then on top of that, you have the sound design, which has been a point of contention for many viewers.
Yeah, the source material really emphasized how some of that key dialogue gets kind of lost in the mix.
It does.
Almost like trying to have a conversation at a rock concert.
It's true.
Yeah.
Some scenes are so overloaded with music and sound effects that it's almost impossible to understand what the characters are saying.
I get that Nolan wants to create an immersive experience,
right?
But sometimes it feels like style over substance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow the plot and I can barely hear what anyone is saying.
Yeah. I think it's a deliberate choice, but it definitely adds to the overall sense of confusion and disorientation.
Uh-huh.
Which may be the point, given that we're dealing with this world where time is flowing in both directions.
Okay, fair enough. But even if I miss a few lines here and there, the source material makes it clear that Tenet is packed with philosophical themes.
It really is.
The whole idea of fate versus free will, for example, really seems to be at the heart of this film.
Absolutely. If you can literally reverse your actions and change the past, does that mean you have free will?
Right.
Or are you just fulfilling a predetermined destiny?
That's the kind of question that keeps you up at night.
Yeah.
Right. And Tenet does not shy away from exploring these complex ideas.
It does not.
Uh-huh.
It challenges us to rethink our understanding of time and choice.
Yeah.
and the nature of reality itself.
And then there's the whole bootstrap paradox thing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one.
So you remember that scene where the protagonist receives an object in the past, but then later we discover he's the one who sends it back in time to his past self.
So wouldn't that mean the object just, like, always existed?
Exactly.
It messes with my whole idea of cause and effect.
It does. The bootstrap paradox is a very mind-bending concept.
Yeah.
That suggests that an object or event can be both its own cause and its own effect, existing in this kind of closed loop.
So it's like a chicken and egg scenario.
Right.
But with time travel.
Yeah.
My brain hurts.
It's the beauty of Tenet. It takes these familiar concepts like time travel and free will and just twists them into something completely new and thought-provoking.
It's a film that demands your full attention.
It really does.
For sure.
Yeah.
But even with all the complexities we've discussed, the source material also highlights how Tenet is visually stunning.
Oh, it's a beautiful film.
Some even argued that the visuals sometimes overshadow the narrative.
That's a valid point.
A little bit.
Nolan is a master of visual storytelling, and Tenet is just full of these breathtaking sequences that push the boundaries of what's possible on screen.
Like that scene where they flip the whole 747.
Right.
Visually incredible, but I gotta admit, I was so focused on the spectacle that I might have missed some of the finer points of the plot.
Right.
You know?
It's a classic Nolan dilemma, balancing spectacle with substance.
That's true.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure.
So we were talking about that 747, I mean, flipping a 747.
Right, right.
That's pretty wild.
It's a perfect example of Nolan's ambition as a filmmaker.
Right.
You can't deny the visual impact, but it does make you wonder, like, did I just miss something really important?
Right.
While I was trying to process the physics of what I was looking at.
Exactly. It's like my brain is working overtime to process what I'm seeing.
Right.
That I might not be picking up on, like, the nuances of the dialogue.
Like the subtle.
Character motivations, all that stuff, yeah.
And this tension between spectacle and clarity is a recurring theme that comes up in discussions about Nolan's work.
Yeah.
Some people argue that his visual grandeur can be distracting, even overwhelming at times.
It's funny because one of the articles that you sent compared Tenet to a magic trick.
Oh, interesting.
You're so captivated by the illusion, the spectacle of it all,
right,
that you don't really stop to think about how it was done or what it all means.
It's a great analogy. And Nolan himself has talked about how he's interested in creating these cinematic experiences that work on like a visceral and intellectual level.
Right.
He wants you to feel the tension and the excitement, the confusion.
Yeah. But
he also wants you to think about the implications of what you're seeing.
Well, speaking of confusion, let's go back to that sound mixing issue.
Right.
I know it's been a bit of a sticking point for some viewers. The source material definitely highlighted it as a major frustration for some people.
Yeah, the sound design in Tenet is definitely unconventional, sometimes even jarring.
Right.
It's almost like he wants to immerse us in this disorienting experience that the characters are going through, navigating this world where time flows in both directions.
I'm all for artistic choices.
Sure.
But I did find myself, rewinding scenes just to try and figure out what they were saying. Like, I felt like I needed subtitles.
I think it's fair to say that Nolan prioritizes atmosphere and mood over clarity of dialogue in this film.
Right.
That dense scientific jargon combined with that really layered sound design creates this sense of unease, maybe even a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to put us in the same headspace as the protagonist,
right?
Who's constantly trying to make sense of this topsy-turvy world.
Exactly. It's certainly a bold approach and one that has divided audiences.
Sure.
Some find it frustrating, while others appreciate that immersive, that almost experimental nature of the sound design.
Sure. I think, we can all agree that Tenet tackles some pretty thought-provoking themes.
Absolutely.
The whole concept of inversion raises all these profound questions about time and choice and free will.
For sure. It's as if Nolan is taking these big philosophical questions and he's weaving them into this high-octane action thriller.
We were talking about the bootstrap paradox before.
Yeah.
And how that kind of challenges our linear understanding of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Were there any other philosophical, like, nuggets that you found in the source material?
Yeah, so one of the articles explored this idea that Tenet is essentially a film about entropy.
Okay.
Which is a concept in physics
that
describes the tendency of systems to move towards disorder over time.
Help me connect the dots. How does entropy relate to Tenet?
So think about inversion.
Okay.
It allows characters to reverse the flow of time
Right.
for specific objects or actions.
Right.
They're basically creating these little pockets of order within this larger system that's moving towards chaos.
So they're like temporarily defying the natural flow of time.
Exactly.
Which is always moving toward greater entropy, towards disorder.
Towards disorder, yeah. And this ties in with the film's themes of fate and free will.
Okay.
You know, if everything is ultimately moving towards chaos, does it really matter?
Right.
What choices we make, do we actually have control over our destiny?
That's a pretty bleak outlook.
It is, but the film also offers this glimmer of hope.
Okay.
You know, the protagonist and his team, they're fighting to prevent this catastrophic event that would essentially reverse the flow of time for the entire universe.
Whoa.
Leading to complete annihilation.
So they're not just fighting for their own survival.
Right.
They're fighting for...
They're fighting to preserve...
like, existence.
The possibility of order, of meaning, of existence itself.
Wow.
They're fighting against that inevitable tide of entropy, even if they know the odds are stacked against them.
You know, one of the things that struck me about Tenet, despite all this, you know, all the mind-bending action, these complex concepts, is that it's also a film about human connection.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The relationship between the protagonist and Neil is a great example of this.
Yes.
You know, their bond transcends time and causality.
Right.
It suggests that even in this chaotic and unpredictable universe, human connection can endure.
It's a reminder that even, you know, in the face of these overwhelming forces, when time itself seems to be against us, that there's still power in these human relationships.
That's right.
And trust. Right. And loyalty.
Yeah, and it brings us back to that idea of choice. Even if our actions are ultimately predetermined, we still have the choice to connect with others, to build relationships, to make a difference in the lives of the people around us.
Okay, I think I need a moment to process all of that.
It's a lot.
It's amazing how Tenet can be both like this mind-bending action spectacle, but also this meditation on the human condition.
It's a testament to Nolan's skill as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to challenge audiences, to push the boundaries of what cinema can achieve.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, from, you know, mind-bending visuals to philosophical conundrums and even the power of human connection.
But there's one more aspect of Tenet that we need to discuss before we wrap things up.
I'm ready.
And that's the fan theories.
Oh, yes. The source material hinted at some pretty wild theories circulating online.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm dying to hear what you think about those.
All right. Well, then buckle up.
We're back. Still with Tenet. And my brain it's still trying to process that whole entropy thing.
Yeah, it's a lot to wrap your head around.
For sure.
But before we spiral into a full-blown existential crisis, let's lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
With some fan theories.
Yes, the fan theories.
Right.
The source material definitely hinted at some pretty wild ones circulating online.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm all ears. What do you got?
All right. Well, one theory suggests that Neil, the protagonist's enigmatic partner, is actually a future version of the protagonist himself.
Wait, hold on, seriously.
Yeah.
So the protagonist is basically like teaming up with his future self.
That's the theory.
That would explain a lot. That would explain how Neil is always like one step ahead.
Right. He's got this uncanny ability to anticipate events.
Yes.
And just always seems to know what's going to happen next.
Right.
And it'll also align with those themes of, temporal loops, predestination that we were talking about earlier.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. It's like the protagonist's actions in the present are shaping his own future.
Wow.
Even though he's completely unaware of it.
Makes you wonder if free will even exists in this world.
Right.
Or if we're all just playing out some predetermined script.
That's the question.
That is the question.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, there's more.
There's more, yeah. Another theory proposes that Tenet actually exists in the same cinematic universe as Nolan's Inception.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, like dream within a dream kind of stuff?
Kind of. The idea is that manipulating time is just another level of dream manipulation.
Okay.
You remember in Inception, the dream-sharing technology?
Mm-hmm.
What if the organization in Tenet has evolved that technology to a point where they can actually control the flow of time?
So now we're getting really meta.
We're going meta, yeah.
But I love how he does this. He leaves all these little breadcrumbs for fans to discover, to debate, to dissect.
It's part of what makes his film so rewatchable.
Right. You catch something new every time you watch.
Exactly. You can always catch some new detail.
Yeah.
Or make some new connection upon multiple viewings.
It's pretty amazing, how Tenet still generates so much buzz and discussion.
I know.
Even all these years after it was released.
It really has become this cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's
more than just a film.
It sparked countless online debates and essays and video essays and even podcasts.
Like ours.
Like this one. People are still trying to decode its secrets.
Right.
And unravel its mysteries.
I think that really speaks to Nolan's skill as a storyteller.
Absolutely.
Like, he's not afraid of complexity.
No.
He really trusts his audience to engage with his films on all these different levels, even if it means that they walk away with more questions than answers.
Absolutely. And that's what makes Tenet so compelling,
Right.
It's a film that really stays with you long after you've seen it.
Yeah.
And it prompts you to think about these big questions about the nature of time and choice and the fabric of reality.
Yeah, so for our listener who has been on this journey with us, this deep dive with us, what would you say is the takeaway here?
I think the most important thing is to approach Tenet as an experience.
Right.
Not just a story to be passively consumed.
Okay.
It's a film that demands your full attention. It encourages multiple viewings.
Yeah.
And it really rewards those who are willing to dig deeper into its layers of meaning.
And hey, if you need to pause the movie every few minutes to Google something or rewind a scene to try and figure out what they said, that's all part of the fun.
That's part of the experience.
Right. Like he said, don't try to understand it, feel it.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for the complexities and the brilliance of Tenet, and maybe even sparked a few of your own theories.
Right. Maybe you've got your own interpretation of the film's true meaning.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop diving deep.
That's right.